Hello, English 101. We're back with another video here. This one's on proper research methods. Now, starting with SA2 and going for SA3 and beyond, and not just in this class but other classes, you're going to have to incorporate outside sources or research into your writing to support your various arguments or proposals that you're going to have to make. This is something that's really important and pertinent throughout your college career. We've, of course, been covering MLA citation, which shows how to cite and document the materials you research and use to bring into your essay. Now, when we talk about research methods, we talk about how we go about doing research, how we go about finding these materials and deciding which materials to use, deciding what is a legitimate, credible source or a source that may be biased or bad that we don't want to use. So, without further ado, let's get started. There's a three-step process to doing research on the college level. The first step is to pose questions. The second step is to search. And the third step is to evaluate what you find. Let's dive into each of these steps. Our first one is posing questions. We have to first figure out what to look up. So we have to obviously ask a question. So our questions need to be three things. They first need to be focused, they need to be challenging, and they need to be grounded. Let's start off with focus. When a research question needs to be focused, it needs to again be specific. It needs to be narrow. It needs to seek out a specific answer and not something broad. Take a look at our examples. Here's one that's too broad. How is financial literacy beneficial to students? If, for example, you were writing your essay 2 proposing a financial literacy class, then that would be the question your entire essay would answer. In each of your body paragraphs, you're looking for supporting points or reasons why financial literacy class should be proposed. So, you want to look for more specific sources or pieces of evidence that would fit better in a body paragraph for your essay. Research questions should also be challenging. The question that you ask shouldn't be answered in a simple fact or a simple yes or a no. It needs to be something a little bit more complex. It needs to be an answer that's thought-provoking, that is engaging. Take a look at this example. How many KCTCS campuses teach an information literacy source? The answer to that question is going to be a number, or it could be a yes or a no. So, with that being said, that question really isn't going to yield very thought-provoking or engaging information. It's just going to be a number, and your use for it will be kind of limited. But if you ask a more challenging question, such as, what campus resource assists most in teaching an information literacy course? You'll get an answer that's a little bit more complex, more thought-provoking, or engaging. Something that will be a lot more applicable for your supporting arguments. Last, your research question should also be grounded. You want to make sure that it's not too speculative, something that could be answered and that doesn't really address morality or belief, something that can be a bit more tangible evidence that you could use. Take a look at the speculative question here. Why are hybrid classes better for students who work full-time or are parents? That question asks you to sort of make a moral or belief-based judgment on hybrid classes already. That's kind of what you're doing over the course of this essay, obviously. So in your supporting paragraphs, you don't want something that's going to be too speculative, all right? You're going to want something that's more specific. Look at this question here. How exactly do hybrid classes help students with travel costs or childcare costs? It talks about the benefit in a specific way, such as travel costs or childcare costs. It doesn't necessarily give an answer or a referendum on the whole thing. So as a review, make sure to make your questions focused, challenging, and grounded to find the right information you need for your essay. When we search, there are three primary places that I recommend that you search. The first one is the library catalog. That's the library's card catalog that chronicles all the books in this library. Now, if we go to our course Blackboard page and click library, it'll take us straight to the library webpage. Here is a search engine called Primo. Primo is a search engine that searches everything that the library has, the stuff in the book stacks, the electronic books the library has, as well as the scholarly articles and newspaper articles that the library has archived. So you obviously in Primo would type whatever your topic is in here, and by clicking go, you'll get a list of sources that you might use. Again, making sure that you type specific things into the search bar can help. Using quotation marks ensures that the phrase, such as financial literacy class, searched will only show up in the results in that order. Notice how I put it in quotation marks and it says financial literacy class in every single find here. By clicking view online or by clicking locations, you'll be able to find where the library has this. The library has this material online that you can read from other websites, as well as its locations. Again, your JCTC tuition and card gives you access to any KCTCS library. Obviously, I don't expect you to drive way out of your way to go pick up a book, but it's cool to think that you have access to that. Also, if you click Books and click KCTCS Library Catalog, you get a much more specific search engine here where you can search what books the KCTCS library has. So if you're looking for something physical, I would recommend you do this. Last, we have articles. If you click this articles button right here on the main library page, it takes you to this page where it talks about the many resources that the library has access to. Once again, your tuition goes toward giving you access to all this information. I want to draw your attention to two things, EBSCOhost and JSTOR. Let's check out JSTOR first. JSTOR is a scholarly database where you can search scholarly journals or peer-reviewed journals. By typing in your topic here, much like Primo, you'll get a set of responses, albeit more specific, of scholarly articles on that subject. Again, these you'll be able to download the PDF as well. Again, in brief, those are three main places where you can go while searching. Remember to use quotation marks and use specific language for the material you search. Again, library catalog, which is the book catalog that I showed you, scholarly journals by clicking the articles link, and Primo's the big link on the main page of the library. So again, this is going to be something that you're going to want to get familiar with, not just in this essay, in this class, but others. When we search, we want to employ some specific strategies. We want to first use search engines and use terms that are as specific as possible, and as saw in the examples, enclose those phrases in quotation marks. In the address bar, you want to make sure to look at URLs and their endings. So if we're doing simply a Google search, you want to take a look at the endings of the website. I've pulled out a few here, .edu, .gov, and some .org. Those are going to be the best ones that you want to use. .edu and .gov are usually pretty good. .edu means it was put out by a university. .gov means it was put out by the government. .org sometimes can mean that it was put out by an organization that's maybe nonprofit or maybe has some sort of political leaning. So sometimes these organizations will have biased information. So .org you'll want to watch out for. You also want to use bibliographies and citations as shortcuts. So if you're looking at any source that links other sources, and click and find out that information. Websites like Wikipedia can help that, but I do urge you, and I've bolded and underlined this because it's really important, do not cite Wikipedia in any paper whatsoever for any class. It's not a credible source. It's a good place to get started when looking for research, but it certainly is not a source you want to quote, paraphrase, or summarize in your paper. So please do not include it. All right, so after you've found your source and you've taken a look at it, you want to evaluate it next. We evaluate when we read our source, and then we evaluate when we write or decide how to use our source. When we read, we want to ask ourselves, okay, how is this information presented? The two questions that you want to answer are first, is it credible? Examine the publication and the website. Is it presented in an informational, unbiased manner? You might want to check for bias in the author and the sponsor or publisher. Again, do a quick Google search on the author or the publisher. It'll be very telling. Again, if the author or the publisher has any sort of political leaning, then you might want to consider that that information might be biased. Next, is it relevant? Look at the date. Ensure your source was published or last updated in this decade. So again, we want to kind of pick out sources that are 2010 or later. Then we want to check and see if it's extensive. Does it cover the topic at length, or is it just one brief quote in another set of paragraphs that's about something else? Is it thorough? Does it really develop the topic? Does it really present a very solid and very multifaceted argument? Again, these are the questions you're going to want to be asking. You're going to want to see whether the website's credible, if it's neutral, if it's presenting information in an objective, clear, and unbiased way, and is it relevant? You're going to want to make sure that the website is something that's up to date, talking about contemporary issues, and not something that's a bit more dated or old. Last, we want to talk about how we evaluate when we write. We want to think, okay, after I've read this, after I've determined that it's credible and that it's relevant, how can I use this information? So you want to start looking for lines or passages that you could quote, paraphrase, or summarize. All right. After you've identified that, you want to say, okay, how does this information help support your thesis or lend you credibility? That's when you begin to develop and draft your analysis, or the part of your writing at the end of your body paragraphs where you connect back to your thesis. You might also ask the question, how do my ideas fit the conversation or context surrounding this subject? You want to obviously see how your argument or your proposal for Essay 2 fits the conversation surrounding your chosen subject. So for Essay 2, you would like to see how your proposal of your class fits the conversation surrounding classes like that in colleges today. To review, there's a three-step process to doing proper academic research methods. Number one, pose questions. Make sure your question is focused, challenging, and grounded. All right. It also helps to be familiar with the prominent authors and authorities on your subject. Then, when we search, use the library databases as well as popular search engines and know what preliminary info to look for. Remember, use those quotation marks when you want to find a certain specific phrase in the material you search. Last, evaluate sources. Be sure to read with an open mind and critical eye. All right, make sure to determine whether the source is relevant and whether the source is credible. Consider how these sources support your thesis, and again, how your ideas fit the conversation. All right, guys, that's it. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me, rran0001@kctcs.edu. And again, happy researching. Thanks.